Okay.
Myles Garrett, NFL sack record. I mean, he hit that. He hit 23 sacks. He
He
is
hit
now
that.
the all-time leader in NFL sacks, 23, beating out Michael Strahan and TJ Watt. Exciting stuff. But Michael Strahan kind of had a comic response to it, talking on Fox NFL Sunday. And, look, I thought it was funny. I think you could take it however you want to take it, but you could take it as an emotional take, and I think it's fine. But what he said was this. He said, I mean, I hold the record for 16-game season. Myles holds it for the 17-game season. Is that right? Is that the way we should be looking at these records right now? Obviously, there's been games in the past where you've had people like the rushing record for, like, I don't know, OJ Simpson did it on a 12-game season. You have, of course, 16-game records that Strahan holds, and now we move to 16 or 17 games. Is this the way that we need to look at these records, or just, hey, look, it's one big family. It's just you take it or leave it?
It's a really good question, actually, because, my initial response is absolutely you have to look at them as different records. But then also at the exact same time, they are still like that is the record, right? That's how it's listed. So it kind of takes ball knowledge to know what's going on there. This is, when you bring up like 16 versus 17 game seasons, this is a stat that comes to my mind. This is the 5th season of the 17 game regular season. And still, no one has come close to Peyton Manning's 2013 regular season of 5,477 yards and 55 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
He did that in 16 games. So there is something to be said about like those 16 game records are still, they're still out there. They're still tough to beat. As far as this one, I don't know, man. It feels like he deserves it. He deserves that he did, in fact. Like, it's kind of the question mark of like, well, who have they beat? They played who's in front of them. You got to do what you got to do. What did it took him an extra game? Well, he had an extra game. Like, you can also make the argument that he had to play for an extra game, right? It wasn't, you're not in the playoffs now. This is the regular season. You still have to suit up for a whole extra game at the end of the year. I could see both sides of the argument. I thought personally that there was a tone in Michael Strahan's voice, as much of a joke as it was. He was like, I'm going to mentally hold on to that as a 16-game season. I know for me, like, I definitely would be like, yeah, it was, I did it in less games kind of thing. But I don't know. Where do you stand on that? Because both sides have a valid argument.
Well, as long as Strahan doesn't go up to like Joe Burrow at a card shop 20 years from now and say, hey, you took away the sack record from me, you took away my livelihood, then I think we're fine. But overall, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. I think the record's the record. And it's not Myles Garrett's fault that they play 17 games. Now, could Myles Garrett have broke the record last week and then we never would have had this conversation? Sure. But that's just not the way it was. So I guess I just don't really care. Now, Strahan did praise Myles Garrett. It wasn't just a lot of pettiness coming from him. It did kind of start off a little petty, not going to lie. But he's straight up said, he's like, this guy's amazing. Myles Garrett's amazing. I know he's got a lot of sacks left in him. He's only 30 years old. He went off to talk about how a lot of Michael Strahan's sacks came after 30. And same with Bruce Smith, same with Reggie White. He said he thinks he's just getting going. And I thought this was the most interesting part. He said that he thinks this is more impressive than anything else because he's doing it on a team where they're not successful. The Browns are not a successful team, meaning that there are hardly any teams in the late games, the late part of the game, throwing the football. They're trying to run the ball. They're trying to run out the clock, just win the game and get out of Cleveland, or just get out of the game against the Browns if they're on the road. Myles Garrett still found a way to get 23 sacks with their team being as bad as they were. I think that's the most impressive part in my mind.
That was a great point by Strahan, and it's it's an eye-opener because it is exactly everyone wants to talk about, and this is totally valid point too, but the fact that there's really not a ton of other guys on that defense, you can kind of just lock down Myles Garrett, and he's still outperforming that. But then when you take into consideration the flow of the game, right? If the Browns were jumping out to massive leads, once teams are behind, they tend to throw it a little bit more for multiple reasons. You can stop the clock. You can, pick up bigger chunk plays, or at least more than likely. There's a lot of reason to throw it. And when you're throwing the ball, you can get sacked. When you're running the ball, it's a little harder to get sacked, which is generally another reason that teams will run it when they're ahead. So it makes a great point there. And I think that there is a lot to be excited about with Myles Garrett. But I do wonder, how long is Myles going to spend some time in Cleveland? Does he eventually move on? Because he is kind of a generational talent at this point, and it's not. Where is it getting him? Like
Well,
when you're
he had
playing
the
on that
opportunity to
terrible of
leave
team,
this offseason, and he didn't. He took the big
he
contract
didn't.
instead.
I
Picked a
suppose.
4-year, $160 million contract this March, $40 million average annually, and decided not to move. He's got a no trade clause as well. So he's going to be with Cleveland through 2030 unless he decides or asks for a trade. I I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he went to chase the bag, and now he's chasing records. He got that. I mean,
What more
as
can
much
you
as I
ask
would
for? I
love to see
guess.
him go somewhere else and compete for a Super Bowl, that's the only thing he has left. So maybe he does request a trade. He's got his money, he's got his record. Now he needs a Super Bowl ring. I don't think he's going to do it in Cleveland. I don't see the Browns
No.
being a Super Bowl contender over the next decade, and that's as long as I think Myles Garrett has left at the complete maximum.
Yeah.
So maybe he stays till 2030, then tries and goes and gets his Super Bowl in his final contract before he demands a trade. I don't know, but what I'm saying is he had his opportunity. He didn't take it.
Yeah, it could be kind of like a Von Miller situation, kind of moving out after your prime. You're still able to help the defense a little bit, but more ring chasing than anything else. I could see that definitely finishing out his time with with Cleveland. And I think if he finished this contract, I don't think, and this is just me, with my vibesometer, which could be still broken. I don't think there would be a single Cleveland fan that would be upset with him leaving. I think the Cleveland fans are very aware of what the situation looks like. And if it doesn't get better in the next, 5 years, they're not going to blame him for wanting to go get a ring somewhere else. I could see that happening too, actually. It's a very good point. So
If he
either
just
way,
leaves
though,
in
for
free
this
agency,
season,
though, could you imagine if he just leaves in free agency and all you get
oh
from
my,
Myles Garrett is a comp pick? I think that would be a complete shame. If you're Cleveland and you're not
yeah, you
competitive over
can't
the
do
next
that.
couple of years, you got to move on from Myles Garrett. Your best player cannot be an edge rusher if you're a team that is looking to get to the playoffs, looking to try and just bounce back. And the fact that we're obviously going to potentially see some head coaching changes actually happen in Cleveland, that's something
Yeah.
that we're waiting on right now as we talk on this Monday morning here at Marv and Rauh in the morning. Obviously, I think you have to make a decision. And I don't think that happens this offseason because you just made that contract extension. But eventually you're going to have to make that decision. Like, hey, look, we're a team that can't afford the luxury of having an edge rusher be our best and highly paid player. We can't. The value there that we can get while he still has value can help our team exponentially compared to what he is
Right.
right now. And as much as you can say that he is a generational talent and would like to put him up on the stadium or the wall or anything in Cleveland, sure. But if you want to look big picture, I think the best thing to do is to move on from Myles Garrett, but I don't think that'll happen anytime soon.
No, I think you have to ride it out for a little bit. I don't think you can move on right now. Maybe one more year or mid-season next season potentially would be the fastest. You can't move on from him that fast. I do agree with you. A ton of value there, and that can really flip a team around. But he's kind of a once in a generational type of player in some sense. He's incredible. He's unbelievable. So I think you kind of try to get the pieces in there to at least make some noise while he's on the team. And then when, the pond is running dry and time is running out, then you can trade him off and get a ton of value. I think that's probably the best play here for the Browns. But since we know what the best play is, we know exactly what the Browns will not do.
He had that's a good point. That's a very good point. He had 6.5 sacks, more than second place Brian Burns from the Giants, who had 16.5 before finishing the season. If anybody's going to break this record now, Myles Garrett obviously owns it with 23. Is there anybody in the league, maybe a youngster you see coming up, of Brian Burns and Aiden Hutchinson, something like that? Do you see anybody that could break it right now? If so, who's on your mind?
Will McDonald out of Iowa State. Never know. Aiden Hutchinson, definitely a dog. Just what we saw last season from him was really eye-opening, I thought. It feels like this is a record that is kind of for the big names, if that makes sense. This isn't one that, generally speaking, some guy comes out of the woodwork and all of a sudden is pushing for this record. This is the NFL sack record. Unlike, like Drew Mestamaker leading all of college football in passing yards last season, like he wasn't on my radar at all. And somebody can make noise like that at the college level, at the NFL level. I do think it has to kind of be a guy who is expected to consistently perform like that. And I think Myles Garrett might just be that guy for the next few years. I don't know if there's going to be somebody else who makes a huge push for it. Someone might get close, but I think every time someone gets close, Myles Garrett will be right there to make at least a statement.
He's young, so I think it's going to take a couple of years for it to actually happen or be back in consideration. But if I had to make a guess on a player who will be next in contention, if you will, if I had to pick a current player right now, I'm going to go Will Anderson Jr. for the Texans. I think he's the guy that I would go.
It's a good one too.
Yeah.